Good evening, everyone. We would like to welcome you all for this introductory session on the life lessons from Bhagavad Gita, 24-session course starting from today and going on up to June 25th. Are you able to hear me and see me clearly? Nachiket?
Yes, we can hear you.
So as a background, we have been doing this courses in 3 batches. Already we did once in the first semester of the 2021, and then the second semester of 2021, and this is the first semester of 2022. More or less, this is the third batch we have been doing of this, trying to cover Bhagavad Gita in 1 semester or 6 months. So my background is that I am a BTech from IIT Madras way back in 1992 in chemical engineering. And then I did my master's in IIT Bombay. And then I'm working as a senior principal scientist in a CSIR lab in Chennai in the area of industrial safety and risk analysis. I was introduced to this Bhagavad Gita way back in the 80s when I was in school. And then thereafter, I got more interested when I was in college at IIT and Pirimal in IIT Bombay. So this has been my way of life besides my professional career. I have benefited it and I try to benefit others also. Over the past 25 years, we have been doing it in a very informal way, but formally we got approvals and doing it as a course. So with this brief background, I would like to start this session. It's a fairly long session because we're trying to cover a total glimpse of the Bhagavad Gita here. And this group size for this meeting is restricted to 100. So if at all it goes beyond 100, you may have to participate through the YouTube link, which we have shared in this chat message, as well as we'll try to put it in the WhatsApp groups in which you might have joined. In any case, whatever I'm going to present today, that the slides will be shared to you. So you need not focus too much on what is the content of the slide, and you can rather try to pay attention to what I'm trying to convey to you. So before I begin the session, I would like to recite a short invocation. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasme Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manabhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Chakrajatam Shagana Raghunatanitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Shavadhutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dhinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Drishavan Shruti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhye Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes, sir, we can see it.
Okay, so as we all know, this Bhagavad Gita was spoken on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, where the Mahabharata war took place. Mahabharata means the history of greater India. So this entire planet was known as Bharata Varsha, and formerly it was Ilavarta Varsha. And this King Bharata, he ruled over this entire planet. And this Bhagavad Gita dates back to 5,000 years ago, when it was spoken on the verge of the Mahabharata war. And it was compiled by Veda Vyasa with the assistance of Lord Ganesha. And it's this Bhagavad Gita is part of the Mahabharata. And it was spoken directly by Lord Krishna, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And particularly he spoke this to Arjuna because he was a devotee and friend, because this knowledge is known as a mystery, because it is a science and it has to be revealed to a person who can practice this Bhagavad Gita. And so this was spoken at the war field, which means this our life is also a kind of a struggle. We go through many struggles in life, and there is a way to come out successful through all this. And there are some principles governing this, the way the world is. And if we follow these principles, we are sure to come out victorious, as the case was Arjuna. So the background is this Mahabharata war happened between the Kauravas and the Pandavas. Originally, they are part of the Kuru dynasty. And this place where the war was fought is Kurukshetra. It's a place of pilgrimage. In other words, the Dharma was practiced there. And in that lineage comes King Bharata. And in that succession, we have Bhishma. Bhishma is also known as Devabrata. And he was the grandfather of the Pandavas and Kauravas. But he had taken a vow that he would not marry and beget children in order to enable his father Shantanu to marry on Satyavati. And through that union between Shantanu and Satyavati was born two sons, Vichitravirya and Chitrangada. But the Chitrangada died prematurely. The Vichitravirya was the king, but could not get children. So that day, those days, there was the concession offered that one could beget children through someone else. So Vedavyasa, who is the author of this Mahabharata, he begot Dhritarashtra through one of the wives, and then another son was Pandu and Vidura. And the sons of Dhritarashtra were known as the Kauravas, and the sons of Pandu were known as the Pandavas, namely 5 in number, as you all know. Yudhishthira, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, and Sahadeva, they were born from the demigods because of the benediction given to their mother Kunti. And Dhritarashtra, of course, had 100 sons, but he being born blind, as per the rules of the kingdom, he could not become the king, as he was handicapped. And therefore, it was rightfully Pandu should have ruled the kingdom. But since he also died, and his sons were not mature in age, so till they grew up, Dhritarashtra was put in charge. And the condition was that once the children grew up, the kingdom should be handed over to them. But all along, Dhritarashtra had been planning to kill the sons of Pandu. And after several unsuccessful attempts, finally they took the kingship. But still, Duryodhana, his son of Dhritarashtra, he engaged them in a gambling match, and by cheating, he defeated them and deprived them of the kingdom for 13 years. And once they came back also, again, he engaged them in a gambling match where he insulted their wife, Draupadi. So after this, the Pandavas wanted to rightfully claim back the kingdom after the 13-year exile period. But then Duryodhana flatly refused to return back the kingdom to them. So on their behalf, Lord Krishna himself went as a messenger to plead to him to at least give them 5 villages by which they can execute the dharma of a Kshatriya. But then Duryodhana was so envious that he refused to give back, and therefore the war was decisive. Now, before we appreciate Bhagavad Gita, first of all, we have to appreciate the speaker of Bhagavad Gita, which is Lord Krishna himself. And we should be at least theoretically convinced that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or the Supreme Controller. And he is related to the Kauravas as the cousin. In fact, he is the Kunti is her aunt by relationship. And his specific purpose of Lord Krishna's descent is to establish Dharma. And this is the background, as I already told you, the why this battle of Kurukshetra was necessary. And particularly, they chose the battlefield as Kurukshetra because it's a place of pilgrimage, and they wanted to establish Dharma. In other words, it was not just for fighting sake that they had assembled there. They wanted to make sure that Dharma reigns supreme, and they had this conviction that whatever outcome comes through this war will be in favor of Dharma. So now what happens is the entire world got divided into 2 sides. Some were favoring the Kauravas and some were favoring the Pandavas. At this point, the Kauravas made a choice of taking the army of Krishna, because Lord Krishna had taken a promise that he would not fight, because later people would say that he took sides or he encouraged this war. So he said, I will not take part in this war, but I can give my army to whomever chooses. Then Duryodhana made the choice that of Krishna's army, whereas the Pandavas had full faith in Lord Krishna. So Arjuna chose Krishna to be the chariot driver so that he could be directed in this war. So now we come to what is the necessity of the Bhagavad Gita. Because Bhagavad Gita, also known as the Gita Upanishad. Upanishad means something which gets us closer to the truth. So at this point, are you able to hear me and comfortable with my pace? And is it the screens which I'm sharing, is it visible to you? Nachiket?
Yes, you can
Yes,
also.
it is visible, sir.
Yeah, so whatever I'm projecting, it will be shared with you. So don't try to get everything that is there on the screen. It's very elaborate, but whatever little you get, you please try to digest that. So as I said, Gita is the also known as Bhagavad Gita is known as the Gita Upanishad. It is the essence of Vedic knowledge. Veda means actually knowledge. It encompasses all the knowledge that we have, and it is the most important among the primary Upanishads. And there are maybe many commentaries, because Bhagavad Gita is also based on the Vedas, and it's not easily accessible or understandable for the common man. So there's a need for a commentary, just like you have a game is going on and there's a live commentary so that we can relate with what is happening. So then one may question, what is the most authentic commentary on the Bhagavad Gita? So the most authentic is whatever gives the spirit of Bhagavad Gita, which is in what intention Lord Krishna spoke this Bhagavad Gita, that has to be understood. So that is mentioned in the Gita himself, that we have to take it like a prescription. Supposing you take a medicine, you don't just go and buy it in a medical shop, especially if it's a very critical one. We have to get the prescription from the doctor. So similarly, this Bhagavad Gita has to be taken as prescribed by Lord Krishna himself. Why particularly we have to take from Lord Krishna? Because it is established fact that he is the Bhagavan. Bhagavan means one who possesses 6 opulences. Bhaga means opulences. He demonstrated his opulences in terms of beauty, strength, fame, knowledge, renunciation, and wisdom. Opulences. The wealth, strength, beauty, knowledge, fame, and renunciation. These are the 6 opulences. And also, there are acharyas. Acharya means those who have followed the scriptures. It is something different from knowing and following. So, achar means they can prachar. So, they are able to implement something in practice. So, they are known as the spiritual masters. So, there have been 4 eminent or 4 to 5 eminent acharyas like Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Nimbarkacharya, and Sri Vishnu Swami and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. So they have established that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead based on scriptural evidence, like the Bhagavad Gita itself, where Krishna declares that he is the Supreme Lord, and then the Srimad Bhagavatam, Brahma Samhita, and all the other 18 Puranas. So this is the spirit in which we can benefit. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita should be taken as directed by Lord Sri Krishna himself, because he is the author. Just like you have some doubts in a technical paper, you correspond with the author, primary author. Now then one may question, okay, this was spoken to Arjuna, so is it applicable in the modern world, in my present situation? Therefore, we have this disciplic succession. Just like the power is generated in the powerhouse, but we are able to receive it through some step-down transformers, and there is a facility created by which we can get the benefit, even though it is generated far up from us at a much higher potential. Similarly, there is what is known as disciplic succession. Disciplic succession comes from the word discipline. Unless there is some discipline, we cannot receive knowledge. And particularly in spiritual matters also, there is a need for this. And it has to be in succession, because there's a person who is very close to God and he has received it in full, he gives the essence to someone who's at a little lower level. That's why this word is used, parampara. Parampara means there's one gradation. One person is superior to another. In just like your army is there, there is a hierarchy. Similarly, to receive this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita also, they have to follow some hierarchy, and that is known as the parampara. So Krishna himself says that he establishes this when he spoke this to the sun god Vivaswan, and he spoke to Manu, Swayambhu Manu, and he spoke to Ikshvaku, who is in the Raghu dynasty, the Sun dynasty, and this way it is coming through. Raghu dynasty means Lord Rama appeared in this, and so Krishna then found that this knowledge is getting lost from time to time. So he has to re-establish it, and he chose Arjuna, particularly because Arjuna was a devotee, which means he is able to utilize his body, mind, and words properly. Devote. The word devotee comes from devote. Devote means dovetail. Dovetail means how to utilize the resources provided to us in the best possible way. And he is a friend. So there are many devotees of Lord Krishna, but still among them, someone is very intimate. Just like there are so many children, but if someone is related to you as your son, is so closer to you. Similarly, Krishna, although he has many devotees, like he had other Pandavas were also there, Bhishma was there. So many devotees were there all the time, but he specifically chose Arjuna because he was most intimate among them. And these are the qualities that one should develop at our own level in order to receive this Bhagavad Gita. Just like that, many doctors are there and they have many patients, but all of them do not get the same benefit, depending on the attitude of the patient also. And there are three classes of people who are trying to solve problems in life. One is, they are known as the impersonalist. Impersonalist means he thinks that I can solve problems by himself. He doesn't need any scriptures. He doesn't need any superior. So they try to follow what is known as the ascending process by trial and error or whatever research work. So this is known as a jnani or the impersonalist. The other one is their yogi. He is through meditation. What does he meditate on? He knows that there is a spirit soul in all the living entities and there's a Paramatma in the living entities who's controlling everything. And then he tries to meditate on that form. Just like I am able to connect to you because there is some internet facility. I cannot see the internet, but I know I depend on that. Similarly, I may not be able to see the Paramatma, the soul, but I know it exists. And therefore, I try to meditate because I cannot see it. And this is the second level, but this person is able to only realize through knowledge. First level, he realizes through existence. Second one, existence and knowledge. But the third, that Bhakta is able to see the Lord in personally in form. Just like if you meet the Prime Minister personally, that's an added advantage. So similarly, the devotee of the Lord is trying to establish a personal relationship through paths known as Bhakti Yoga. The first person, there are Karma Yogis, Jnana Yogis, Ashtanga Yogis, and Bhakti Yogis. We will not delve in that topic now. But ultimate purpose is to establish relationship with the Lord, which is possible in 5 different ways. This is known as 5 rasas or 5 flavors. Just like we relate with someone in a neutral way. We are passive. We appreciate that person, but we still have not established a personal relationship. Or just like we are a fan of some person. The next level is we become a friend, servant. Servant in a, just like a superior person is there. We want to serve under him. We want to do some apprenticeship under him. So the next is friendship. Sakya rasa it is called. First one is known as Santa rasa. The next one is known as Dasya rasa, like Hanuman was the servant of the Lord. Then you have Sakya rasa, like Arjuna is the friend of Krishna. Then you have Vatsalya rasa, or parental relationship, the father and son or father and child, mother and child. So this was established by Vasudeva, Devaki, Nanda, Yashoda. And then you have the conjugal love or marital relationship, is known as the Madhurya rasa, which was possible with the queens of wives of Krishna, or the gopis of Krishna. So the objective of every living entity is to find a Swarup Siddhi. Swarup Siddhi means a perfection of one's constitutional position. Constitution means something which cannot be changed because it is for our ultimate benefit. So what is my constitutional position? What is my relationship with other living entities, with God and this material nature? So that can be found when we attain this Swarupa Siddhi. And so everyone has one particular relationship. although there is one God and there are innumerable living entities, but still each one has a very unique relationship, just like you have a unique ID or unique Aadhaar number. So we want to establish the individuality. So that individuality is possible when we connect with Krishna. And right now we have forgotten that individuality, individual relationship, personal relationship we have with God. But it can be revived if we follow the process of devotion, because the devotion is inherent in all living entities. The connection with God is there in all living entities, individual connection, personal connection. But it is right now forgotten and we have to establish it, and that is possible. Now, what was Arjuna's way of accepting this Bhagavad Gita? How could he benefit from Bhagavad Gita and win the war, which was very crucial? There was no way he could succeed in this battle because he was fighting a very powerful opponent. But still, because he followed Krishna's instructions, he was successful. So similarly, there may appear to be many problems in life, many challenges, much bigger than what we are capable of. But still, if we follow the simple process that everything is under the control of the Lord and we are surrendered to that, accept that control system, then we can come out victorious. So particularly Arjuna realized these qualities of Krishna, which is Param Brahma or the supreme truth, Parandhama, supreme abode or resting place, Pavitram, the purest, then the Paramam, absolute, then he is Purusham, enjoyer, and Shashvatam, eternal, and he is Ajam, unborn, Divyam, transcendental. He is the greatest Vibhum, and not only he is accepting Krishna as the supreme. Okay, I have nearly 40 slides to cover, so I'm going at my normal pace only. Anyhow, so these are some of the qualities which Arjuna found in Krishna. Not only did he find this is accepted by the acharyas. As I explained, the acharyas means their authorities, scriptural authorities, and they have confirmed this about Lord Krishna. So therefore, there is no need to worship many gods. The general conception is Indian or Hindu system, we think that there are many gods. Just like we have only one father. We may respect someone on the level of our father or level of our mother, but we have only one father and one mother. Similarly, we have one scripture and one God. And it may appear that there are many gods, but actually they are assistants to one God. And they are known as the demigods or devas. Now, this is an important statement in the Bhagavad Gita 10, chapter 12 to 14 as to why Arjuna accepts Krishna as the supreme and what authority he has in terms of who are the other acharyas who are declaring this about Krishna. Adideva means the original Lord and Ajam means unborn, as I explained. So we'll see all this in detail. Now, how should we understand the Bhagavad Gita? Supposing I give you some very nutritious food, still to digest that, we need to have an appetite. Similarly, how do we get the full benefit of Bhagavad Gita? So first thing is that should be taken in a spirit of devotion. Devotion means we are willing to follow that. If you theoretically hear something, that is good, but when we really want to practice it, then we get the full benefit. So this Bhagavad Gita should be taken in a spirit that, yes, I would like to practice it. And one should, at the same time, not think that he's on an equal level with Krishna. Just like if you think that I am as equal as my PhD guide or master, whoever, I cannot qualify myself to receive knowledge from him. So even theoretically also, we should not think that we are equal to Krishna. Because Krishna has demonstrated it very clearly over several times that he is no equal to him or greater than him. So first that has to be understood. And not only that, we should not think he is a historical personality, that anyone can become God. He was Krishna, I can also become Krishna. Today he is God, tomorrow I can become God, and now he is not God. So these kind of misconceptions people may have, that God can be replaced, just like a prime minister can be replaced, but God can never be replaced. So that has to be understood. And so even if we are not ready to accept that, at least theoretically, the starting point is that we accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality God. So this submissive spirit is required. Just like if you want to light a a matchstick. You cannot put it in a vertical position and try to light it. It has to bend it. So that is the nature of this world. Unless you are at a lower potential, you cannot receive something from a higher potential. So this applies to Bhagavad Gita also. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to understand because it's a mystery. Mystery means it is very scientific. And just like you don't understand the highest science immediately, you have to qualify gradually. Now, what is the purpose of Bhagavad Gita? Does it have a real purpose or is it just for some uh, entertainment? So, the main purpose is to deliver mankind from the nishanes. Nishanes means ignorance. We are unscientific. When we go against the science, then it doesn't work. So, right now, some things are not working. As we see, we are struggling with the pandemic. So, this Bhagavad Gita will try to enlighten us with knowledge. And why? Because we are always in difficulty. We are always in anxiety. Why anxiety comes? Because we are fear of the unknown. Many things which you don't know, or we have bad experience in the past, or we don't know about the future. So this is all causing anxiety. And therefore, we think that everything is temporary. We have this experience in life that whatever we plan, it remains temporary. That's known as asat. But our nature is we want eternity. But we are seeing everything contrary to our eternal nature, and that is causing us a lot of suffering. But even though we are suffering, very few try to inquire about why there is suffering, how to overcome this suffering. So that's why the Brahma Sutra, Brahma means the first creator, he composed the knowledge he received from God in the form of sutras, just like you have axioms, which means you don't have to prove them. They're established facts, just like you have some formula, already it has been derived and proved. So there it is said that Atato Brahma Jignasa, having attained the human form of life, you inquire about who you are, what is the purpose of life, and how to attain that. So one has to be sincere in order to, sincere means no hypocrisy. Now, why Krishna personally has to come to give this Bhagavad Gita? He wants to establish the purpose of life because all the living entities are dependent on him. As we will see in the later chapter, Krishna says, Mama Vamsho Sarvabhuta Jivaloke Sanatana. So he gives us the purpose. And once the purpose is defined, then the path will follow automatically. Now, now Lord is also very kind. Although he is great, he is reaching out to us, every living entity. And through Arjuna, he is trying to give the knowledge. So just like we have so many fruits we get in the shop, but they are coming through some process. We never go to the fields, we never do the cultivation, or never we pluck the fruit, neither we transport it. Everything is readily made available to us. Similarly, these devotees who are more qualified, they receive this knowledge and they pass it on to us. And that was Arjuna's position. And because he was very close, and moreover, was above ignorance. Temporarily, he appeared to be ignorant on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, just like we may be very intelligent. But in a crisis situation, our intelligence may not work. So that's what happened to Arjuna. And what are the topics of the Bhagavad Gita? There are basically 5 topics. They're known as the 5 basic tattvas or truths. One is it talks about Ishvara, or who is the controller, who is the controller of all controllers, and that is no other name is God. And who is the Jiva or the living entity, and the nature of the living entity, he is always controlled and he is conditioned. Conditioned means he is overcome by the 3 modes of material nature. The third subject is Prakriti. Prakriti means always changing. It is eternal, just like energy is eternal. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed, but it changes its manifestation. Similarly, Prakriti is also eternal, but it constantly manifests, unmanifests, and manifests. So then there is a fourth subject of Kala or time. How time is controlling. Even the scientists are bewildered as to what is time. Although we are using it in our day-to-day life, there is relative time. Absolute time, relative time. And the fourth subject is karma or activity. Among these 5 subjects, the first 4 are eternal. And the fifth one, karma, can be changed. So we have only control over our activities and our destiny. Now, this is a little detail about the 5 topics of Bhagavad Gita. In brief, as I said, Ishvara means the supreme controller, and the living entity is also qualitatively similar to God, but quantitatively different. Just like you take a drop of water, has qualities similar to an ocean in terms of salt and composition, but quantity-wise, it is no comparison. Now, the material nature is working under the Lord's direction. Although we are also trying to control material nature, time and again we are helpless. The living entity is also being part and parcel of God. Part and parcel means qualitatively one, but quantitatively different. And his qualitative is similar, and he is also trying to control this material nature. Partly he is successful, but predominantly he is not. And the third topic, as I said, is about Prakriti or material nature. It has 2 divisions. One is material Prakriti and Para Prakriti. That is the living entities and the which are conscious, and the material nature which is not conscious. And then we have Kala or time, which brings up all the activities, all the changes that take place. Even the 3 modes are there, just like a wheel is there. Unless the wheel is rotated, it will not move forward. Or there something axle is required to pull it forward. The time it rotates the wheel, or Kala Chakra it is called. And then we have activities which are done under the influence of the 3 modes of material nature, which are known as Sattva, Raja, and Tamo, or goodness, passion, and ignorance. So we have these 3 states of existence, and that is how this activity is happening. Now, as I said, this karma is something, or activity is something which we can change. The living entity has given the authority to change his activity, and thus the consequences. Just like Arjuna was able to come out victorious in the battle, whereas the Kauravas were unsuccessful because they chose the wrong course of action. Now, what is the major difference between the living entity and God? One is the Lord is Kshetrajna, which means he knows about supposing you're owner of a land or a house, you know where the documents are, how the house was constructed, and every detail. But the tenant, he may not know everything about the house. Similarly, the Lord knows everything in the creation, whereas the living entity knows something, but very limited. And the Lord is conscious of uh, uh, all the living entities, all the material nature, and he is not affected. But our consciousness is contaminated in the sense that our perceptions are very limited. Even if we see something, smell, taste, touch, it has very limited range of operation. And the Lord is present in the heart of all living entities. In other words, he is aware of what is going through in our what every living entity is thinking, or even what atoms, these material elements, how they are functioning, everything he knows this detail. But our perception is limited to our own body. Supposing I'm in an ant body, I know only my knowledge is limited to that body. If I'm in a dinosaur body, then my knowledge is limited to that particular body. And the Lord is concerned, he is able to control all the bodies. Just like a puppet is there, it is controlled by a puppeteer. So all our senses, indirectly or directly, they're controlled by the Lord. Whereas we have very limited control over our body. As long as we are healthy, we are able to control. But beyond, once we leave this body, we have no control over it. And he is not affected by whatever actions he performs, but we become affected. And so the Lord is accompanying every living entity through every lifetime. He is conscious about our past, present, and future. And we are forced to change our bodies, whereas he is accompanying us, but he is not forced to accompany us. Just like a person is forced to enter the jail sometimes, but the warden, he is also in the jail, but he is not bound by the prison. So now this karma can be changed when the living entity acts in the mode of goodness. So he has the choice to change his activities. Now, one question has to be answered as what is consciousness? Because that is the property of the soul. The distinguishing factor between the living entity, material nature, and God is what is known as consciousness. And that consciousness can be changed through the process of bhakti. So ultimately, bhakti means how to purify our consciousness. Just like any gold is there, you purify it, or any metal is there, you purify it and you get the best quality out of it. So the best performance of the jiva is possible through the process of bhakti. Now, when the living entity becomes conscious of the supreme conscious, then it acquires its original constitution. Just like you, when the sunlight, you can see everything very clearly. And this consciousness is not a material. In other words, it's not produced by matter. It is the nature of the soul. It is eternal. And unfortunately, this consciousness becomes covered, just like the sunlight is there, but right now it is not accessible to me. Supposing I am closed all the doors and windows of my room and sit inside, even though the sun is outside bright and shining, I cannot receive it. So currently, although we are conscious, our consciousness is covered by the, just like the clouds are covering the sunlight. Similarly, the three modes of material nature, they cover the consciousness. So therefore, the Lord has to descend into this material world, and but his consciousness never becomes polluted. Just like the patient is infected by the disease, but if the doctor is not affected by the disease, he can very well cure someone. So the Lord is someone whose consciousness never contaminated, even if he descends to this material world, and therefore he is able to revive our consciousness. So this Bhagavad Gita teaches us basically how to purify our consciousness, and that is known as bhakti. And so one conditioning of the living entity is acquires what is known as a false ego. Ego means identity. Unless I have an identity, I don't have an individuality. And without an individuality, I don't know how to function, and I'm not happy if I don't function according to my individuality. But unfortunately, we acquire what is known as false ego. In other words, you go against your original nature. You artificially create your own nature and you try to live according to that. Supposing I want to fly like a bird. If I attempt it, I will not be successful because I am not constructed that way. Similarly, if you try to acquire a false ego and develop an intelligence or a mind and senses and a body according to that, it will not serve the purpose. So liberation means to become free from such contaminated consciousness. And what is the ultimate contamination? When you think that I am the controller, I am the enjoyer. In other words, you want to take the position of God, then that is the ultimate contamination. So only we can be happy when we cooperate with God, and that is the known as bhakti. And so this is different ways we can realize God. And the Bhagavad Gita contains the complete knowledge of Vedic wisdom. The essence of the Vedas, all knowledge is given in this Bhagavad Gita. So whatever incompleteness we feel in life, basically our dissatisfaction in life is when we feel incomplete. But actually we are complete when we have the right knowledge. And what is that right knowledge? Here it is explained that known as Sankhya Yoga, that is by analysis. This material world is composed of 24 elements. Of course, we might have studied 108 elements in the periodic table. That is not what we are talking about here. First, there are 5 Maha Panchabhutas. Panchabhutas means earth, water, fire, air, and ether. They are known as Bhumi. Kam means ether, Vayu, and Bhumirapo, Anulo, Vayu, Kam. Bhumi means earth. Apaha means water. Anala means fire. Vayu means air. And Kam means ether. So generally people have a misconception that ether means the ether which is discussed in the physics subject. But actually these are available in subtle form. They are not perceptible. But when they mix together, then they become perceptible. Like for example, the earth which we talk about, the solid, it's actually a combination of these 5 elements. Similarly, water also is a combination of the 5 elements. So actually they are in subtle form, and when they mix, they take a gross form. Then we have the 5 knowledge acquiring senses. For example, we have the eyes. The eyes are related to the fire, and nose is related to earth, and ears are related to ether, skin is related to air, and tongue is related to water. So we will not go into details at this point, but we understand there are 5 senses through which we acquire knowledge. We see, smell, taste, touch, and hear. And then we have 5 working senses, which is the voice. We use the tongue for both purposes, for tasting as well as speaking. And we have the legs too, that is the hind limbs, 4 limbs, that is the hands. Then we have the reproductive system and the digestive system. Then next 5 is the object of senses. Supposing if I have my eyes, I need to see something. If I have my ears, I have to hear something. I have smell, then there's something. So these are the 5 objects of the senses. They have the subject and the object. Object is form, smell, sound, touch, and taste. They are known as the tanmatras. And then you have the 3 subtle components of the subtle body are the mind, intelligence, and false ego. Basically, mind means it's always accepting and rejecting. Intelligence means it discriminates. And ego means identity. We have a real ego and a false ego. So these are the unmanifested 3 modes of material nature. Sattva, Rajoguna, and Tamoguna. These are also unmanifest, but when they combine, then these things, whatever we are talking about, they become perceptible. So because of this combination of these 24 elements, the living entity is experiencing happiness, distress, and desire and hatred. Just like you may have so many ideas, but unless the facility is there or the circumstances are there, we cannot fulfill them. Similarly, the soul may have many experiences, but all that is happening because of the interaction of these 24 elements. It is possible. Now, why do we have to approach the Vedas? Because we said the Bhagavad Gita is the essence of the Vedas. Now, Vedic knowledge is complete. That is by definition, Vedas means it is complete. And why? Because it is given by the complete God. And he is infallible. He can never go wrong. Whatever he declares in the Vedas is absolute. And why? Because he doesn't commit the 4 mistakes which normally all living entities, including Brahma, can commit these 4 defects. What are they? We have imperfect senses. For example, I have my eyes, ears, and other senses, but they are very limited. So therefore, very likely that I will do mistakes with that imperfect senses. That's why to err is human, we say. And that's why, because of the imperfect senses, we commit mistakes. And once we commit mistake, we become illusion. Just like if I see, smell something wrong, smell, taste, touch something wrong, my mind also processes that mistake and comes to the wrong conclusion. That is known as illusion. And once we become illusion, we turn to cheat others. We adamantly argue that I am right when we know very well that we are wrong. So this is the 4 defects broadly that every living entity has, whereas God by definition doesn't have these 4 defects. And therefore, whatever knowledge he gives in the form of the Vedas is complete and perfect. And now the Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all the Vedic scriptures. And therefore, we need not interpret it or try to do research on the what is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. You can do research, of course, to understand it and apply it, but we need not question the authority of the Bhagavad Gita. And then one may ask, how do I receive this knowledge? As I explained already, there's a disciplic succession or parampara. Just like in a class of students, some may be very intelligent. He may give 100 marks, someone is getting 70, 60, 40. But similarly, the science of devotion is also received through this disciplic succession. So this ensures that we get the same message. And so once that parampara was broken, time and again, just like a river is flowing, sometimes it gets stuck at one particular point. Similarly, this knowledge also, due to lack of discipline, this appears to be lost. So then Krishna chooses someone who's very qualified and restarts that, and that is known as the revival of the. Now, what is the goal of human life? If I know what is the goal of human life, then my purpose is fulfilled. So one is to understand the importance compared to other life forms. Why is this human life important? It's said to be very rare to get a human form and then to attain perfection in the human form of life. First, if you value the importance of human life, then we will utilize it properly. And next is the goal of human life is already given in the scriptures. Just like you buy a sophisticated instrument, it comes along with a manual which tells how to utilize it best. Similarly, the scriptures are very clearly telling that once you attain human life, what you are supposed to do, how you are supposed to conduct yourself and achieve the success. And that is the essence is given in the Bhagavad Gita. So therefore, we have to utilize the instructions properly under the direction of a spiritual master. And we ultimately able to establish our original relationship with Krishna, and then we be situated in eternity, knowledge, and bliss. That is known as Sanatana Dharma. As we talk, Dharma means constitutional position. And when you deviate from our constitutional position, that's when the problems start. So the solution is to come back to our original constitutional position. And that has to be Sanatana, which means it is something which is done perpetually. It's not that for time being, I solve a problem. I should be able to solve it forever. And that is the purpose of Dharma or Sanatana Dharma. And this, what is Sanatana Dharma? What is my eternal occupation? That is, it has no beginning and end according to Sri Ramanujacharya. And it is not sectarian. In other words, Sanatana Dharma is universal. Wherever you go in any part of this universe, this can be practiced. Just like you learn some subject, you can go any part of the world, it can be practiced because it is a science. Similarly, Sanatana Dharma is not confined to any particular religion or some sect. So Sanatana Dharma is not sectarian. It is not a question of belief. It's not that whether you believe or don't believe in science, it works. So it is the Sanatana Dharma is trying to help us re-establish a relationship with the Supreme Lord. And that is the basic difference between religion and Sanatana Dharma. Religion means something which is based on your faith, and that faith may change. Whereas Sanatana Dharma, even if you are an atheist, that you have to follow these principles of Dharma. Just like water is there, then by definition, water it's a liquid state. And similarly, fire is there, its nature is to produce heat and light. So this nature cannot be, just like salt is there, unless it produces that taste, it cannot be called salt or sugar. So our Sanatana Dharma is that we are related eternally with God and other living entities. And what is the relationship? As servant and master. That is fixed. We cannot change this position. Of course, God also wants to serve us, just like Krishna become a servant to Arjuna. Krishna served Yudhishthira in the Rajasuya sacrifice. So, why we have to serve? Because that is our nature. We observe all the living entities, they're always engaged in some service. For example, a husband is serving his wife, or wife is serving the husband, the father is serving the child is serving the parent, and we are working in a job, the master is serving the servant, or the president is serving the citizens. So this nature of serving is eternal. It's an eternal principle which we cannot change. And so when we serve this Supreme Lord, that is the perfection of our service. All living entities can be completely satisfied when they begin to serve God. Because by serving God, we only benefit. He doesn't benefit by our service. Only we stand to benefit. So who would not want to serve such a master? Now one may question, what is the need for so many gods? In other religions, they have a conception that there is one God, but we feel that the general conception is that there are many gods. Over time? Okay. But the conception is there are many assistants to God, and they are known as the Devatas. Just like in a big government is there are many ministers to support the government, and they are in charge of several departments. Actually, in the spiritual world, there is no need for management. Everything is perfect. All are perfect. But in this material world, there's always mismanagement. And so therefore, to set it in order, the Lord has to depute among living entities themselves. These devatas also are living entities, but one step ahead of others. So they are given some special responsibility, like the sun god is there, moon god is there. They keep changing. This positions keep changing. And therefore, we need not worship them exclusively. We have to respect them because they are serving God, but we need not try to worship all of them. It is not practically possible also. So if you pour water to the root of a tree, or you feed the stomach, the whole body becomes nourished. And when you water the root of a tree, the entire tree gets nourished. Similarly, we need not worship all these demigods, although they have to be respected. Just by worshipping one God, Krishna, all of them will be satisfied. And if they are satisfied, everything in this world will be perfectly in order. But some people, then they want, just like if you take care of one part of the body and neglect the other part of the body, that may be seem to be good idea, but it's not very intelligent. Uh, So therefore, Lord personally comes to establish his superiority. There are, when the Devatas are not able to solve the problems of that the living entities are facing, they approach Brahma, and Brahma approaches Lord, and accepting that request, Lord makes his appearance. And why? Because why he is said to be the Lord? He is Anandamayo Abhyasa. He is the reservoir of all pleasure. He is always happy and he can make others happy. And, and we being connected with the Lord, we can also acquire that happiness from him. So the Lord personally comes in this world to attract us to his abode and to attract us to him by through his pastimes. Pastimes means whatever he does is beneficial to others. We call it time pass. Time pass means we're wasting time. We don't know what we are doing, whether it's beneficial to others. But whatever God does, it is beneficial to every living entity. He accomplishes many things simultaneously. And so he time and again shows his supremacy through his activities. And further, he wants to attract us to his abode. Just like a foreigner comes to our country and does something exceptional, we become attracted. Okay, maybe I should also go to his place, and maybe there are very good facilities there. So, similarly, God comes to attract us to his abode from which we originally belong. What is the speciality of his abode? There is no need for sun and moon. For example, we are very much dependent on the sun and moon. Our vegetables, fruits, or even our body will not sustain without the sun and moon. But in the spiritual world, all the living entities are self-luminous because they are full in knowledge and full capacity. They know their potential. So there's no need for sun and moon. There's no need for fire or electricity. Even the electricity is there in all the planets in different forms. But we need to produce energy here. There's energy shortage here, or energy dissipation here. But in the spiritual world, there's unlimited energy, and that is derived from the living entities and the Supreme Lord. And once one reaches that abode of perfection, he doesn't become imperfect again. In this world, we attain some perfection and we are imperfect in some ways. We try to achieve in some other way. Again, we are perfect in some other area. But once we attain this place, we are perfect in all respects. And now, one may ask, what about other planets? There are, the description is there that there are 7 upper planets and 7 lower planets. That is Bhurloka, where we are situated right now. Then Bhuvarloka, where the spirits are, spirit means they don't have a body and they're able to more powerful than the living entities who have bodies. And then Bhuvarloka, then Swargaloka, where Indra, the heavenly planets are there. Then Maharloka, Tapaloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, and Satyaloka or Brahmaloka. These are the higher planet systems according to the elevation of their consciousness from Sattva, Raja, and Tama to Sattva Guna. Then there are the 7 lower planets: the Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatala, Rasatala, Mahatala, Patala. These are the, again, this division of higher and lower in terms of consciousness. Uh, Now, in this material world also, we have a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. Just like if you go to the bank of a river or a pond is there, on the pond bank, there is a tree. The reflection of the tree can be seen in the water. And if you dive into the water to catch a fruit, you will obviously not get it because the fruit is hanging in the tree above you. Similarly, we think we have so many experiences in this world, but they are mixed. Mixed means they sometimes give happiness and same thing gives distress. And it's all in a perverted form. Just like you see in a mirror, everything is a mirror image, we call it, or it can be deceptive. So whatever experience we have in this world is very deceptive or fruitive. But in this material world also, if we conduct ourselves properly, we can have an experience of the spiritual world. Just like even if you are in this country, you can get a glimpse of the foreign country through some mechanism. Similarly, even though we are struggling in this material world, if we follow some rules and regulations or take the guidance of the scriptures and the authorities, we can still experience the spiritual world while we are in the material world, and that acts as a motivation for us to perform devotion and attain that world. So what is that world Krishna describes? His abode. That is unmanifest. Just like there are so many planets in this universe, but we cannot see them with our naked eye. But they exist. We can use the telescopes or some sophisticated means by which we can come to know that there is much superior form of life there. And what is the qualification for reaching that? One should become free from false designations. Huh? This is known as nirmana moha. We create artificial designation for ourselves. We try to create a designation which we don't have. So that hinders our progress in life. That's known as the false ego. False ego means I try to acquire something which I cannot possess. Huh? So the problem is we try to identify ourselves as a body which doesn't belong to us. Everything relating to the body is also not going to be with us forever. And we that is the greatest false designation, that I am the body and those related to the body are mine, because that will be elaborated. And how do you attain this abode? How to become free from this false designation? First, we have to realize that I am eternal, whereas the body which I have right now is temporary. I am full of knowledge, but right now I am in ignorance. I am blissful, but right now I am suffering. So this we should understand that this is our original nature, but currently I have forgotten that, or I am not acting according to the original nature. So how does the Lord advise us to reach that abode? Antakalecha mamema smaran muktva kalevaram yah prayati samadbhavam yati nastyatra samshaya. If you always remember Krishna throughout our life, and especially at the time of death, then it is very easy to attain his abode. Because there are many insects. If you see the butterfly, it was once crawling on the ground as a caterpillar. But as it's always meditating on how to fly, eventually it acquires the body which is required to fly. Similarly, if you meditate on our life about going to the abode of the Lord, or the qualities of the Lord, by remembering his activities, qualities, name, form, and pastimes, then it becomes natural to us to remember him and attain his abode. So therefore, we have to uh, overcome this temporary nature, ignorance, and suffering to go to his abode. And how do we do that? We take help from the scriptures or the Vedas. Right now, we are getting information through many sources. We read books, newspapers, magazines, TV, internet, radio. But these give us knowledge only about what is happening in the world around us. But the scriptures talk about what is knowledge in the world beyond us, that is the spiritual world to which we belong. And therefore, although we don't have practical experience, we have to begin somewhere theoretically, and eventually we become qualified to experience what is there in the scriptures. For that purpose, we have many elaborate scriptures given by Vedavyasa himself. First, we have the four Vedas, then we have the 18 Puranas, then we have the commentary on the Vedanta, the conclusion of the Vedanta, the form of the Bhagavatam. Then we have the epics like the Ramayana and Mahabharata, and Bhagavad Gita is part of that Mahabharata. And what is ultimately the advice of Krishna to Arjuna? Always think of me in the form of Krishna. Carry out two things. Is ultimately Krishna's instruction is true. One is to always think about him. How do you think about Krishna? When you know about him, why he is great, or what is his instruction, what are his activities, what are his qualities, what is our relationship with him. If you think of that, and simultaneously we have to perform our duties. There's a prescribed duty, which means everyone's nature is different. So we have to act according to our individual nature. So for example, that will be explained in the next slide. If you do these two things simultaneously, be where we are at the same time, fix our mind on the goal, then we can, so this division of society is there. Each one of us is a part of the society. And there are basically 8 divisions. That is Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasa. Either we are celibate, we are married, or we are retired, or renounced. These are the ashramas. And then you have the Varna. Varna means according to the combination of the 3 modes, Sattva, Raja, and Tama. You have some inherent nature. For example, you are very studious, or you want to teach, that is a Brahminical qualification, or you want to be an administrator or a manager, that is a Kshatriya, or you are a producer like a Vaishya, or you want to do work, manual work, or that is the Shudra. So you have to respect all of them. Just like in the body, we have a head and the tail. So these are all required for the proper functioning of the body. So it doesn't matter where you are right now, but wherever we are, if you act according to that our nature, then we can be happy and contribute to society. So despite all this, wherever we are in the Varna and Ashrama, if we have a common goal is to remember Krishna, then all of us can be successful no matter where we are. It doesn't matter man, woman, which country you belong to, which community or which nation or which varna, ashrama. That is secondary. Just like you are in the train, you're traveling in the train, as long as you're reaching the destination, it doesn't really matter in which compartment you are. So how do we conduct ourselves? Although we use the body and the senses, ultimately the driving force is the mind and intelligence. And if we change our mind and intelligence, then automatically our body and senses will fall in order. Because the hierarchy is the senses, superior to the senses is the mind, superior to the mind is the intelligence, superior to the intelligence is the ego, and superior to the ego is the consciousness. So this Bhagavad Gita helps us to establish this hierarchy which is currently lost. Now, how do we do that? There are 9 items of devotional service. That is, we can hear, and that was perfected by Maharaj. Just by hearing about this spiritual subject, you can perfect your life, or talking about it, known as Kirtanam, or remembering it, like Prahlada did, or you can do active service, like Hanuman or Lakshmi doing, or you can do worship, deity worship, that is by Prithu, or offering prayers, or by taking some special task orders like Hanuman, and then you have by friendship like Arjuna, or like Bali Chakravarti, he offered everything. So this we'll go into these details later on. That there are 9 types of in which, because each living entity is different, his perfection level of perfection is different, his capabilities are different. So accordingly, there are different choices offered to the living entity to serve the Lord or attain his original nature. So we can engage all the parts of our body, like hearing about the Lord, talking about the Lord, using our hands, legs to go to the temple, eating prasadam also. So there are many ways to engage in devotional service and revive our original nature. So before we begin the process, we have to approach a guru. That's the spiritual master. Just like you go to a college, you approach a teacher or a master. So that is the foundational difference between an animal and a human, that he approaches a guide. And and it's open to all. And what is by adopting the principles given in Bhagavad Gita, one can perfect his life and permanently solve all the problems of life. Ultimately, the problems are also coming from God, and solutions are also coming from God. Just like you have virus, antivirus, but antivirus is also a virus only, but it is intelligently solving the problem. Similarly, although the problems are created, just like an examination paper is set by the professor who is also teaching us. Similarly, the Bhagavad Gita is giving us the problem and the solution also. Why we are getting into problem, we have to solve it. So in conclusion, what is the benefit of Bhagavad Gita? If one properly follows the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, one can be freed from all the miseries and anxieties of life. Miseries is due to the past and anxiety is due to the future. Both will be solved by Bhagavad Gita. Bhaya Shokadi Vajjita. One will be freed from all fears. Why is the fear of the unknown? When we don't know what is going to happen or what is happening, then it produces fear. Just like if you go in the darkness, you are always fearful. Maybe some snake will bite me or something I'll fall down. But once you're in the light, then that fear goes away. And in Gita Mahatmya, Shankaracharya has given this Gita Mahatmya in 7 verses is glorifying the Bhagavad Gita. One can abandon all types of dharma. Dharma means we are confused about what is our duty. So one prime duty is when we surrender to Krishna, or in other words, we keep that as the prime motive, and then adhere to other religions. Then the other religions also will give us benefit. Once first we have to overcome the nature of committing mistakes. That is known as sin. Sin means when we act against our nature. So we have to act according to our original nature, and that is possible when we can overcome fear in life or the fear of the unknown. And for that, we require cleansing. Just like we take a bath to cleanse our body, we also have to cleanse our consciousness, our mind, and intelligence. So this Bhagavad Gita can penetrate into our heart and cleanse what the water cannot clean. We can, with the water, you can clean the soap, you can clean your body. But what is the mechanism to clean our consciousness or the mind? That has to enter through the ear. And the sound vibration can, just like ultrasonics can be used for cleaning, this is the ultimate sound vibration of Bhagavad Gita, the names of God, which can purify our consciousness. And what is the specific reason we are taking Bhagavad Gita? Because it is spoken by Bhagavan himself. And there's no need for reading all the other Vedas, because Krishna himself is declaring that he is the essence of the Vedas, he is the knower of the Vedas, and he is to be known through the Vedas. And so it is sufficient to read this Bhagavad Gita alone. And the last 2 important messages, the analogy is given, just like a cow is there. Cow has all the nutritional value that we need. But there's a process by which we can get the essence of the cow, and that is the milk of the cow. So that is the Bhagavad Gita is said to be the essence of all the Vedas. And the cow generally doesn't give its milk directly to us. First, it feeds the calf. So that is compared to Arjuna, who is a dear intimate devotee. After the calf takes the milk from the cow, then it gives milk surplus to the others. So similarly, these scholars who have read the Bhagavad Gita, they are getting the essence and they are distributing it to us. And in conclusion, what is the purpose of Bhagavad Gita? We want one religion, one God, one scripture, and one occupation. So that all these four purposes are fulfilled through this Bhagavad Gita. So this is the disciplic succession which I was talking about, which enable us to receive this knowledge into this current day and beyond. Hare Krishna. So I think there are many chat messages. I have not been seeing them. Okay. Any questions or comments, you can put it. General announcement is this course will be in 24 sessions. We have done the introduction now. Then we will have the 18 chapters covered in around 20 sessions, because the second chapter is long one, we have to split it, and 18 chapters is a long one, we'll again split it. Besides that, we have 3 practical applications sessions. For example, first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita are talking about Karma Yoga, second 6 about Bhakti Yoga, and third 6 about Jnana Yoga. At the end of each 6 sessions or the 6 chapters, we'll have a practical application, because that's what we. But why we stress on the theory is, once you understand the theory, then it has many applications. But if you limit it to certain application areas, you may miss the essence of the theory. So that will be a focus.
Okay. So there is one question. The question is from Ruthvik. He is asking, what is ether?
Ether is from which sound is produced. There are different levels of sound. One is the sound which is the soul is able to perceive. Then the intelligence, mind, and the senses. The sound is also has 4 levels. So this is originating from ether. As I said, ether is something which is not perceptible to us, but when it mixes with these other 4 elements, that is air, fire, water, and earth, then it manifests in the form of the, just like sound, it cannot travel through vacuum. So it is traveling through some substance. And some scientists 100 years ago, they designated that as ether. In other words, that's a medium for communicating sound. But that is very much different from the ether which the scriptures are talking about. Sometimes when we conduct some outreach programs, people start arguing vehemently. How can you prove the existence of ether? But there are many things which we don't perceive, but they are fact. Just like we don't see nobody has seen an electron or a proton, but it's a proven in terms of the results. So similarly, the ether is basically which is the 2 functions it has. One is it is producing sound, and secondly, it manifests the hearing sense and the ear. So this is how it is, the scriptures are telling that from ether, sound is produced, and from sound, air is produced. From air, touch is produced, and from touch, water is produced. From water, taste is produced. Before that, fire is produced. From fire, light is produced, as sight is produced. And from that, water is produced, and water, taste is produced. From taste, earth is produced. From earth, smell is produced. And accordingly, we have these 5 sense objects. That is the ear. First is the ear for hearing. Then you have the eyes for seeing. Then you have the tongue for tasting, and the nose for smelling, and the skin for touch. So these are detailed explanations are given. Next.
Next question is from Jafrunisa Madhuji. Can we treat either ether as space element?
Partially, as I said, this is partial way of explaining. Because you may say electromagnetic waves, they don't need a medium, but they have a medium. That is ether.
Okay, so the next question is from Jigyasa. How to know the prescribed duties?
Yeah, just like the doctor is prescribing. So in other words, our prescribed duties have to be told to us by a spiritual authority or the guru, or that guru can be our parents also. There are many types of guru. So basically an authority, that is one thing. And second thing, the scriptural definition given, guidelines are given. Just like you go to the books, you read some books and get some idea about how to do something or what to do. So scriptures are giving us guidelines on how to decide what is my prescribed duty. For example, scripture is telling up to 25 years. If your life is 100 years, then 25 years you can be celibate, and 25 years you can be married life, 25 years retired life, 25 for renounced life. Or scriptures are telling how to identify your nature as to whether you're qualified for Brahminical, or whether you're qualified for be a Kshatriya, whether you're qualified to be a Vaishya or a Shudra. So all these are there in the scriptures and the authorities, and partly you yourself can judge, because all the food is available before you, but you only have to choose. So according to your nature and your ability, partly you also are responsible for making these choices, whether I want to get married or I want to remain celibate or whether I should retire. Those choices partly are given to you. The individual has to make.
So the next question is there any, that is from Shrikant, is there any corresponding Sanskrit word for the ether that is mentioned in scriptures?
So come. Bhumi Rapo Analo Vayu. Come. Bhumi means earth. Anala means fire. Bhumi Apaha. Apaha means water. Anala means fire. Vayu means Bhumi Apa Analo Vayu means air, and Kam means ether. Again, I'm telling this is much different from our perception of earth, water, fire, air, and ether in this world. These are gross forms. Before manifesting the gross form, they are in the subtle form. And at every level, the three modes of material nature, that interaction is happening. So this is a very subtle science by which this keep on combining, and they become just like some chemicals are there. They are in the gaseous form. But when you do thermal cracking, they become liquids and then they become solids. So how from the vapor state they took a solid state? Because in vapor form, we did some reaction and they become liquid, and then further reaction became solid. Solid is very gross. Vapor you cannot see sometimes. Some chemicals, some gases you cannot see or even smell. But they transform into a form which we can perceive. Similarly, these material elements also, they are in their subtle form and they become gross form. And when they become gross, then you can perceive them. For example, a mridanga is there, you're beating the mridanga and you're able to hear because of that is the ether. But that's the one form of ether.
So the next question is from Santosh Kumar. Void and ether are same thing?
No, void means space, akash. Yes, because the space is there, something is filling that space. And everything acts in combination.
The next question is from Akhilesh. You mentioned don't follow demigods. So if I worship Ganesh, is it against Bhagavad Gita?
As I said, respecting and worshipping is different. Just like the example is given, tree is there and you pour water to the root and then the whole tree gets nourished. If you separately try to water the leaves, flowers and fruits, that may be good, but the main benefit is when you put it to the root. Similarly, when you feed the stomach, then the entire body becomes nourished. So our point is that all these demigods are ultimately related to Krishna. So if you serve Krishna, then all the demigods become pleased. So, and
So the next question is from Mahadev. I have missed the last two sessions due to my own mistake. Is there any recording available of these classes?
I would like to also say that we have these weekly sessions where we'll be covering on an average one chapter per session. But beyond this also we have daily sessions. Now, for example, whatever I covered in this 1 hour, that will be covered in 5 1 hours. That is Monday to Friday, 7 to 8 o'clock, both English and Hindi. Simultaneously, we have breakout rooms. One session will be happening in English and one session in Hindi. So in that 1 hour, we'll cover maybe 1/5 of what I covered today. So like that in 5 days, starting from Monday to Friday, we'll be covering again what I spoke today in detail. This 30 pages, I covered 30 pages. That book also, soft copy of the book, we'll be sharing with all the registered participants. I'm just following the Bhagavad Gita as it is book, which is widely accepted all over the world. And I have covered 30 pages. That will be covered in 5 sessions, starting from Monday to Friday. If you're interested, we will anyway putting it in all the WhatsApp groups and the email messages. You can get more details in the sessions.
So there is another question from Ram Prasad.
Yes.
We learn about Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. How is it correlated with Bhagavad Gita?
Yeah. So first we have to understand that there's something called the spiritual world and the material world. In the spiritual world, it is well established that everyone will serve Krishna directly. There's no need to give them philosophy or knowledge or practical explanation, nothing. They naturally serve Krishna as there's one center. But in the material world, people cannot immediately accept Krishna as God. Just like one person asked that I'm worshipping Ganesha, so does it mean that Bhagavad Gita says that I should not worship? Yes, you can worship, but the Bhagavad Gita says don't worship independently. Just like go to Jagannath Puri temple, Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra are the main deities. But you have other altars for other deities, gods also, demigods. But it is very clearly understood that who is the real God and who are the assistants to God. So similarly,
There's another question, can I ask?
Yeah.
So the next question is from Anant Krishnan. Your view on Advait Vedanta.
Nachiket, what was the previous question?
So the question was, we learned about Lord Brahma, Vishnu.
Yeah, Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara. Yes, they are known as the secondary controllers. Krishna first expands into Vasudeva, Sankarshna, Pradyumna, Anuruddha. Then again they expand into second expansion, 4 quadruple expansion, Vasudeva, Sankarshna, Pradyumna. Basically, the consciousness, the ego, the mind, intelligence are under the control of these expansions of the Lord. And this is all happening in the spiritual world. And then when it comes to the managing the material affairs, then he expands into Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara. So we have knowledge about Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara in this material world. But beyond this material world, it is ultimately managed by the form of Krishna and the form, different Vishnu forms, not Vishnu actually, Narayana. And the details are given in the Bhagavatam. So coming to this question.
The question is your view on Advait Vedanta.
Yeah, Vedanta means the conclusion of the Vedas. Anta means conclusion. Veda means knowledge. What is the conclusion of knowledge? That is given by Veda Vyasa himself, because the Vedas were given by Vyasa, and he has given the conclusion of the Vedas himself. Just like you write a big thesis, you give a conclusion to the thesis and abstract for the thesis. Similarly, having written the Vedas in 4 and then the Puranas, Upanishads, and Itihasas, he himself gave the commentary on the Vedanta in the Bhagavatam. So that is the authority. But then to make it accessible to us, there have been many commentaries. Like Ramanujacharya has given his commentary on the Vedanta. Madhvacharya has given his commentary. Shankaracharya has given his commentary. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's disciples have given Govinda Bhashya commentary. These commentaries are trying to get us closer to the truth. There are different opinions. But if you just stick to one thing and say this is the ultimate, then that's also not correct. So Advaita Vedanta is one aspect of the Vedanta, but it is not the full picture given there. Just like one subject is there, it is taught by many people in different ways. So Advaita is saying that the living entity and the Supreme Lord are one. Yes, that is true, because we are one in terms of consciousness. We are also conscious, the Lord is also conscious, we are spirit, God is also Sachidananda, we are all Sachidananda. In that sense, we are Advaita. But there is also the Dvaita aspect, which means we are also different from God. God is different from us. Just like the ocean is different from the drop of water. Quality will same, but quantity same. So that is Dvaita. But the superior to this is Achintya Beda Abeda. Dvaita, Advaita, Vishishta Advaita. So there are different conclusions about perspectives on presenting what is the conclusion of Veda. The ultimate presentation was given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, where he said the simultaneous oneness and difference. Achintya Beda Abeda Tattva. We are simultaneously one and difference in an Achintya Shakti. Due to the Achintya Shakti of the Lord, we are simultaneously one and different.
So done. This is it.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry for delaying the whole thing. Because our first session we're trying to settle down, and we hope we'll abide the time next time. Even if you have some questions unanswered, be patient, and we hope it will be gradually be clarified. If not, also you can always write to us through email or WhatsApp messages. Thank you very much. We'll meet you again next Saturday, 6:30 to 7:30. In between, if you're interested, you can also join our daily sessions from 7 to 8 o'clock. Hare Krishna. Nachiket, you can end.